Screening some baby David, filling some water, while the next person voices the inquiry.
Alexis, you can speak now.
Hi, Metax. My question is, well, my daughter, she's been sick, and I think it's something to do with resilience. I think it's something I need to work on within myself. Like, I realize that I'm probably, like, I see it within her that she's not resilient, and I think it's something I need to work on within myself. I don't know how to approach this, and I was just looking for advice.
Be aware that everything you're perceiving in any other individual is indeed always a reflection of you, but when you're talking about direct genetic lineages to a certain degree, it's always a much stronger feedback system, especially up to a certain age, the idea of your daughter particularly. And when it comes to resilience, there's of course an overabundance of overtaken responsibility to a degree. Well, once you're beating yourself up over a certain degree, it's when you're ironically reducing your resilience and you're lowering your immune protective system. And due to the judgment, so ironically, if you would take off the judgment for anything happening that you consider negative in this case, that's when you're more in a state of what you would consider resilience. Also, your throat would likely get touched upon when your communicative ability is likely affected by it. Also, your lower chakra system, your sacral, could certain region in your sacral particularly, and your throat that I perceive that you could touch upon. So your communicative ability, speaking more clearly, obviously, would be an example of that, but also your heart to some degree. Your immune system to some degree has to do with the heart functioning. I'm trying to work with your energy right now, but there would like to be a band-aid as long as you're not working with the energy yourself. It's preferable if you're doing it directly, because that's when you're keeping it. There's also a certain level of stress that you're experiencing that's lowering your immune protective abilities and therefore also yours, or I'm picking up your energy and her energy through you, so it's likely there's going to be some filtering involved in terms of what I'm receiving. Yes, this throat, heart. Yeah, you could open your heart further, it's certainly important.
Okay. I guess it's interesting that those areas are what she's sort of experiencing in terms of illness.
Well, everything is psychosomatic. You never manifest either positive or negative results in your physical form unless they have been lingering energetically. Even if you were going to stump your food on the night table and hurt it, and you could say, well, it can't be energetically because it happened from the outside, but of course first you would have to be ungrounded to then accidentally hurt a symbol or a physical part of yourself that's connected to grounding, and the same of course relating to heart, throat and the sacral in this case. Also, it works vice versa. The more you're opening then your heart, the more you're using your throat in an appropriate manner, not necessarily to scream around or talk a lot, but just the idea of communicating, even if it's just telepathically, or if it is verbally or written. All of those things have an effect on it. The more truthfully you're communicating or not communicating in some cases, then it's better to be quiet, just be more selective, go with your intuition, and anybody, including your daughter, going with the intuition and communication. Not communicating, even if it's from the outside perspective, there's a necessity to do so, but if it feels wrong, then don't do it. And if feels the right thing to communicate at a certain point, then just communicate just that without worrying about the consequences of the communicative process. Of course, opening the heart is always essential. You're aware of that. And the sacred also has to do with your enjoyment in your physical form, and of course it also keeps a lot of your organs functioning that are necessary. I can only do so much in terms of sending energy through you, since I'm not having a direct communication. And again, important is that you're also getting involved in the process.
Okay, thank you, Metax. I have no further questions.
You're very welcome. Throat should get better. Much love to you and your daughter. You deserve it.
Metax, I just wanted to let you know, and then David also, that the recording may have stopped recording. We just had some question about that, if that's a concern or not, before we continue.
Yes, I understand. I can perhaps... One moment, I will try to get back into David's body to a certain degree, so he would be able to check up on that without the connection between me and him failing. One moment.
Yeah, a message came through at 1:10 with the video.
Picking up from my speaking.
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm not quite familiar with the technicalities of your electronic gadgets or whatever is currently happening.
It seems to still be a recording. The clock, the timer for the recording is still running. It seems to be okay.
Well, Ryan, that's for the call, but another thing came through, but that's fine.
Well, yeah. Anyway, yeah. I think I'm next. So, hello, Metax. Greetings. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Well, yeah. Late. There's some feedback. Well, anyway. So about, as you might remember, Metax, I had told you that I was planning on doing a private session about 2 weeks ago, and then like right before I was planning on doing that, I got sick, and then the cold that I had went away for a few days, but like the cough that I had got worse and worse, and I went to the doctor and I found out I had bronchitis, and then I got really sick again for a few days, and then I got better, and but the cough stayed with me. And also, like during this time, like my laptop broke and I ordered a new one, and the laptop wasn't just like it wasn't what was advertised in the sale listing, so I had to return it and buy a new one. And like for the past 3 weeks, like things have just been going like really, really bad for me and like just stressing me out a whole lot. And I'm wondering like if you could ask my higher self, like why did it put me through such hell, to put it bluntly, for the last 3 weeks? I mean, I've been asking myself that like over and over, like what is the point of being sick and having my laptop break and all this? I mean, can you please ask my higher self like why it did that to me?
A lot of your current species going through similar processes, or your higher self didn't do this to you, your lower self did this to your higher self, so to speak. You got a message to calm down and recharge your frequency, but you didn't do so and instead decided to keep pushing forward anyway with low energy, so there was not much to work with, so therefore you produced further hiccups to stop you in your tracks so you would finally relax and recharge, or at least relax.
But I mean, that did like it did the opposite of making me relax. I just got so stressed, like not quite to the point where I wanted to kill myself, but I mean, in a way, I kind of felt like, man, I just don't want to live. I'm just so stressed. So I mean, why would I do that to myself? Like everything, things were going so well for me. I don't know. I felt great all the time, and then like I don't know, all of a sudden it's like everything just fell apart, and I felt so stressed out and like so low energy. I mean, like why would I do that to myself?
Yeah, it wasn't the higher self, it was you creating hiccups because you weren't listening. And the idea is once you reach a certain height, that is very often when the lessons come in.
So what was the lesson? Like, are you saying I was working too hard?
Yes.
Okay. Um. Okay. Well, all right. I'll keep that in mind then. And another question, like about a week ago, I was listening to the session from last summer where the king of Sigigbar talked to us for a while, and I was transcribing a part of this, like in particular where I had asked you if you liked the movie The Lion King, and you had said that you had mentioned that one of the council members was listening in who was named Scythe. Can you please ask her if she has a preferred spelling of her name?
Necessarily. Size, if you're referring to her.
Yeah.
It's possible the spell name is Z-H or Z-A-H-I-S.
Okay. Wait, one more. Are you saying Zahys?
I-S.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks. And now, like your king was saying that in order for somebody in the United States to become president, they have to corrupt themselves. Do you know who the person Bernie Sanders is? The person running for president now?
Only Sir David.
So do you think he's corrupted?
It's very likely everybody in your system, politically speaking, is what I would refer to, at least, or we over here would refer to some degree corrupted.
Okay. Do you know if he has any ties to the Freemasons or the Illuminati?
Well, your idea of what you're calling the Illuminati is much different than what you're thinking of usually. But of course, I understand what you're referring to, but it's largely more banking cartels, not necessarily a spiritual occult group. He is not necessarily involved with the same cartels that, for example, those that are currently in charge of your country and other countries as well. But he is nonetheless tied in with other groups that are in conflict, but that are still what I would consider corrupt.
Okay. What about the person Joe Biden? Do you think he's corrupted?
Again, I am only familiar with those individuals, Sir David, and from what I shared, your system is largely what I would consider corrupt. It is impossible for people to reach a state of running what you're calling for office without being a part of this corruption that is normal, that is institutionalized in your whole governmental structure.
Okay. All right. So on another topic, about like maybe a week ago, I was talking to the artist Daniel Fisher, who did the drawing of you like from the side view back in 2017, I think. And like I was talking to him about like another drawing of you. Like maybe I don't know. I mean, like one option would be like to have a really epic drawing of you, like with the throne room in the background, as well as like possibly like your king and like all the council members kind of seated around you in the picture. I don't know if he's going to have as much time to go that much into depth because I mean to draw like 10 different felines could kind of get really crazy. But anyway, like could you describe like in general what the throne room looks like so in case if he's listening it'll give him some ideas to kind of get started.
There are there some the walls are what you consider perhaps a deep purple, violet, those colorations, or lavender. Obviously, the king, as you would perhaps call us, is seated at the top of the table. The council members are seated on the sides, left and right, so perhaps or if you would look directly at the king, then you would see members sitting on sides of the table, left and right. And they could, for example, be looking at the viewer. That's what I would suggest. It's more welcoming, as this would be the side that you would have if you would come in the room, so to speak, to have an audience or an appointment or something like it. There's a fairly large room, so there's space around the table. Between the table and the wall, there's some space. It's a higher room, so there's not necessarily direct ceiling, perhaps similar to one of your churches in terms of the height of ceiling and the way it's conically shaped. If there's necessity, perhaps They can also copy some ideas that I shared with him earlier in a written format, so we don't have to occupy time here with the description of those details if it is necessary. However, in general, I could do my best to portray the image to a visual person directly into the mind of if he is open, but it also depends on the susceptibility of the individual. But since he picked up my frequency very appropriately, this should be not as much of a difficult task as it might be otherwise. The eyes of the king are obviously silver, and he would insist on that being of importance.
You said his eyes are silver?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're claiming they're very bright.
Okay. Is he on what are the council members and the king and you for that matter seated on? Like, are you all seated down or are some of you standing?
Yes, seated on what you would like to term a chair or throne if you wish. But not like many of your kings where someone's throne is higher than the other members and therefore further away is still the same table. And the individual is seated on something you would likely call a chair.
Okay. How many council members are there?
It depends who's present. There's at least 9.
Okay. And so what, like, are you, Metax, are you usually standing or are you seated too?
I'm not necessarily a member of the council, but when I'm attending, I'm seated.
Okay. So are the council members kind of seated around the table like in a circle or like a half circle?
They are seated both similar to the round table you might imagine the King Arthur earlier, but not as much round, more elliptic.
Okay.
And yes, they're seated around the table and they're all female, except the king.
So I'm sure they're like all the council members are dressed uniquely.
Not necessarily, there's not much dressing involved since they're covered in fur, so there are some adornments like jewelry or badges or something that might appear satin to your eyes. It's not necessarily satin, but it would look similar. But we are not wearing thick armor or especially the females or anything of that nature, but just some adornments, some chains around the neck, for example, that go over the shoulders.
Okay.
Capes.
Okay. You might have mentioned it, but what color is the table?
The cable is a more darkish tinge, grayish, but there's also peculiarity. It's susceptible to change. Remember, our reality is much more malleable, and sometimes we change the table also according to the current discussion.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I'll. Like I said, we'll at some point in the next few months do a drawing at least of you, Metax. I don't know I don't know if he's gonna have time to draw everybody else. So to everybody listening, yeah, don't be offended if he doesn't have time to draw 10 or 11 different people. But anyway, we'll see how it turns out. Should be pretty cool. All right. Well, yeah, I'll stop with my questioning there, Metax, to give everybody else time to talk. Yeah, goodbye, Metax. Like I was telling the class, probably next week, and I'll do a private session with you. So until then, much love, and talk to you later.
Until direction, much love to you. And again, I might advise David to send you some more details if you have further inquiry in written format, but I've shared the most important aspects. Goodbye for now.
Okay, all right, thanks. Goodbye.
So Jacob's mic is not working, but I was discussing with him in the side chat if there's anything he'd like to ask. And he's wondering if Myra or King, those are two entities he's familiar with, would have any messages for him.
Well, the latter Kang idea certainly has a more peculiar interest interacting with him more directly. Not to the degree I can connect them right now, but their ideas, there's an interest, it's mutual. I hope that is at least somewhat beneficial to him. However, the looks are appropriate. The energy feels perhaps more centered than mine, perhaps more darker. Darker still is not the correct term. More commanding, likely, compared to my more serene energy. Not quite as our king, for example. Perhaps more stern. Well, he doesn't like any of those words I'm using. But I think he's aware of what I'm sharing here. Perhaps a very fatherly energy. Over there I have something that's perhaps more appropriate. Earlier there was the mentioning of the Lion King movie from your world, and there's certainly an entity in that movie that has slightly more of a frequency that he is okay with the Mufasa idea, the older lion person. Not that he would look like that exactly, but there's something that he is perfectly fine with being identified with in terms of energetic resonance character without a sad ending. I hope that is helpful.
Okay, thanks, Metax. I just wanted a chance for Jacob to share if there was anything. And so next in line is Tran.
Hi, Metax. Can you hear me?
I'm taking from your speaking, trying to help you do so as well.
Yeah, I can hear you. I recently discovered that I had at least one rat in my attic. I discovered it because there was a smell in the house. It was somewhat upsetting to me, but it has happened to this house before because there are lots of trees around. And I believe, from what I understand of how to interpret this situation, it is another reminder that I could work on my boundaries. Now that the what's left of the rat has been removed and the holes have been patched up, so I would hope then that I am somewhat recognizing this this lax boundary of mine, and I'm looking into enforcing what are my preferences for myself.
Remember when you're talking about anything entering your surrounding that you might not be comfortable with, it's always a reflection of your current exertion of energy, and if you're inviting something in that you might then not be particularly equipped with to deal with, then yes, that's a clear sign that you are perhaps not as selective as you could be. Doesn't mean you can't have unconditional love or acceptance of everything that's real, but if you're experiencing something you would rather not have compared to something else, then the key is usually to focus on the something else you would have instead, and therefore your reflections will also change, like with this visitor that you have had.
So you're saying that the key is to focus on the things that I'm enjoying about what is going on rather than what I'm disliking, and then just monitor the reflections. Did I hear you correctly?
That's one way to interpret this, yes, but you could also focus on what you want to create, not just what you like compared to what you don't like
Oh,
there, but also what you would like to have instead. So it's not you have to accept what's currently there and just not look at the part you don't like and look more at the part you do like, and instead also focus on what you want to create. So, for example, if you have a rat in your house and you have a nice flower blooming and you focus on the flower instead of the rat, that's perhaps not ideal. It's likely preferable, but you wouldn't fix the rat issue, for example, if that had been your approach. Instead, perhaps you want to have another stray cat enter your room, so they would then focus on the stray cat, and therefore the idea of the rat would then subside, because instead the energy would be occupied with the stray cat, just as an example.
yeah. Okay. And speaking of reflections, I sometimes find that there are avenues where I would like to proceed, for example, certain business ventures or certain projects that I want to get off the ground. And it just doesn't seem like they progress very fast. For example, I have a plant-related project that I do on the side. It's like a kind of like a small, like a little business that I'm developing on the side, but it is going probably only at half the speed, or maybe a quarter of the speed that I had originally envisioned. And I'd like to understand, is that simply because I'm giving myself more time to prepare, or what is I mean, I know that I've created this myself.
There is no time, there's only energy. So you're expanding energy somewhere. You're same as the rat. You're putting your energy in something, so therefore that's where the energy is instead of what you're considering your business venture. And it's up to you to decide when you want to put all your energy in there instead of somewhere else. That's perfectly acceptable to do so, but remember, everything requires sacrifices in life. You can get anything if you're wishing to sacrifice everything for that one thing. You just need to decide how much energy you're wishing to take away from somewhere else and put it there. That's all it takes. Everything is energy. Everything you have is energy, and you create your world with energy. So it depends how much energy you put in this and how much you put somewhere else.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
Oh, so be self-loving. Don't beat yourself up over any of this, because that takes the most of your energy.
Yeah. Okay. I have stretched myself very thin this past maybe 1 year. I realized that I have stretched myself too thin in order to do everything that I want to do. I've had a tendency in the past to rush into things, partly to escape a previous undesired situation, and also through not really considering how much energy something would take out of me. So I would disregard how much work it would require of me to take on certain projects, and I would be stretched too thin doing too many things.
Well, it's up to you to take your energy back. And same with the rat. To use back the example there. Be careful where you put your energy. Don't just try to remove energy from somewhere or yourself from somewhere or to get away. Focus on where you want to be and where you want to put the energy, and you'll automatically not put it anymore anywhere where you don't want it to be. But you cannot be not somewhere. You can only be somewhere. You understand?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
again, put also energy in yourself.
Yeah. Self-care, right?
The more you care about yourself, the more able you are to accomplish anything else. Also, love doesn't shrink by sharing it, but if you refuse it to yourself, you're depleting yourself.
Yeah.
So instead of stretching yourself thin, fill yourself with your own self-love, energy. Whoever you wish to share it with can pick up from it when you let it radiate outward. Trickle down love, so to speak.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Also remember you're perfectly fine without accomplishing anything in the material world, and ironically when you do, that's when you can accomplish much more.
Yeah, that's comforting to know.
And it's also true. I'm not just trying to comfort you, it's a general fact, but I'm glad that it has this effect on you. You have a certain amount of energy in your lifetime that you can share with others or accomplish something in your life, and it's entirely up to you how much of that you use for what. In general, there's a lot of energy in your species currently that needs to slow down, and not just individuals. That's why you're creating certain sicknesses collectively and individually to slow you down.
Yeah, well, one of the side benefits to this, or the fear about the coronavirus, is that I don't have to travel so much for work this year, or at least this half year, and that's a relief.
And that relief might be necessary. And you always create reliefs when you're going too far, and that's usually the main benefit you create collectively. You don't have to get there, however. You can also recharge before it gets that far. Otherwise, you'll be forced to. But as long as you're willing to recharge either alone or with others in any setting, that's when those other problems will subside because they no longer need to be there. They're there for a reason. And very often the reason is simply to recharge by your preferred method.
I'm not sure how you moved Metax in David's body right then, but the sound has become much easier to hear.
Yes, perhaps it's easy understandable.
Yeah. I'm not sure because I forgot to check when I started talking, but I think I might still have a few minutes. I just had the question. So approximately 1 week ago, I went to an area of my city called La Jolla. And just before I went there, I was feeling quite low vibration, I guess you could say. And when I went there, I was quite astonished at how much better I felt there. Like the energy just completely uplifted and shifted my vibration so high that it was something almost like a life-changing moment. And I realized that basically I could just use that experience to help me in my day-to-day life, because it was just such an amazing shift that happened basically from just changing my location. Would you be able to speak more on this experience in that location if you can read the energy there?
Well, I can only read the energy as far as you have interacted with it. I remember everything as a reflection, so it's not just the location, it's also your willingness to shift, which then carried you to the location that was conducive to the energy that you subconsciously were pulsing out. However, there are certainly places in your world that are much easier on your energy simply because they're a match to your frequency and others are a mismatch. So which is also a good idea, right? In some cases you create your own reality, but in some cases moving your own physical form from one area to another one, or not doing so depending, is certainly beneficial at all times. I don't necessarily analyze all your cities and details, etc., except through how you are experiencing them. So also I can just give you a feedback on what you shared yourself. Yes, there's grid work, etc., and you can carry energy to certain areas to uplift them, but sometimes also necessary to do the opposite, which is also why I recommend people sometimes to disconnect from your electronic gadgets and to be openly in nature. And of course, certain areas of your country or city or your planet are much more conducive to certain frequencies than others because the energy that what happened in a certain area is stored there both positively and negatively. That's how you create sacred sites on your planet. There's not always a church or temple built upon those sites, and you might just have been lucky, or as you would perhaps be more familiar, you've been frequency aligned with something you might consider then a portal or whatever, or something similar in that region that you're tuned into. Of course, also the people that live in a certain area also give over a certain frequency. It's clear if you're not in nature, but in the city, that's always, of course, also to a large degree very effective. Very often when there are less people, it's also much better to your frequency, because if there's a large amount of people in one area, there's much more stress being produced comparatively. But then again, it also depends on the individuals that are located in the region. Also, perhaps you're associating certain energies that you're used to, and just the change of energy itself led to you getting more in flux again. So therefore the change set your own energy more in motion, which then subsequently made it possible for your body to cleanse out a lot of toxins, energetically as well as physically, mostly energetically.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my time is up. I'm not really sure, but I think that's the case. I'm not sure if there's anybody after me. There was supposed to be somebody named Jacob. Does anybody know if he's able to join?
Yeah, I've been in the side chat with him. His microphone is not working, so we still have about 10 minutes in the session. But with that happening, yeah, we're having a little extra time here.
Okay, well, Metax, thank you very much for these insights. I always love talking to you. Much love to you and your kind.
Much love to you. Also greatly love and enjoy interacting with you, all of you. And of course, I appreciate your inquisitive and calm nature and your willingness to bring forth your current challenges and dreams and desires. It also helps me to learn and grow. Much love to you.
Well, I don't have any questions just because I choose to facilitate here, but was there anything in this last 10 minutes? Was there anything Metax you wanted to share? And if not, maybe there's someone else that would like to have a question.
Yes, I'm aware there's been a problem of your electronic gadgets. It's also, I can't comment on your technicalities, but that also has to do with your, well, again, currently in your plan, what I shared earlier also with numerous other individuals, also replying to David, when you're extremely stressing out and certain events occur, to reduce the amount of work and ability that you have to do anything. Now, it's not necessarily the case of our direction right here and now, but in general, your electronic gadgets, etc., or the stream of events that the Ryan person shared earlier, in terms of one thing happening after the other that are creating hiccups. So perhaps also something for anybody that's participated and facilitated our current direction to work on the sole idea, as you're all present in this moment in terms of where communication is to some degree halted, is likely also a reflection of that, as well as including David considering the communicative abilities. Perhaps we can cut it short in our current direction, as the Jacob person is still capable to speak up to a certain degree and or bring up a certain more detailed inquiry than what I have been able to share earlier, considering Kang and Myra.
No, Jacob isn't able to speak, but I think everything's a reflection here and everyone's going to get some type of information out of it. So if nobody else has anything else, thank you so much for coming in, Metax, and everyone else who's been in today, and much love.
Yeah, hey Metax. I guess like if I can borrow your time again for a few minutes. So like lately I've been thinking about moving, and like over the last couple of days, like I've really decided like firmly that I plan to move to the state of California sometime soon, but I'm kind of like I'm not sure when exactly I should move. I mean, if I wanted to right now, like financially I should be able to afford to, but I'm kind of not sure if I should maybe stay at my job currently a little bit longer and pay off like some more of my debts and save up some more money before I move. Could you possibly again connect to my higher self and ask if it has any recommendations as far as whether I should whether I should move now or get more financially capable before I move?
I would think it's more beneficial from its perspective to move sooner rather than later, but then again, it's your own self telling yourself that, so to speak. I personally don't really have any suggestion what area would be preferable, considering well, it's likely beneficial for you to relocate areas.
Okay. Jacob, do you want to try to speak to Metax?
Sure. Can you hear me now? What you guys speaking of?
I think your microphone. I don't think your microphone's working too well, Jacob.
Right.
Jacob, if you type something in the chat box, I'll ask Metax for you.
Okay.
Yeah, Jacob. I mean, yeah, I know Chrissy had asked a question for you earlier. If you have anything else, since we have like 5 minutes left, you're welcome to ask. Uh, but anyway, like as far as I'm concerned, Metax, yeah, thanks a lot for asking my higher self that. Yeah, I agree. I think I should probably move sooner rather than later. Um, okay. Well, yeah, I'm just waiting to see if Jacob has anything he wants to ask.
Well, I'm not surprised you agree since it's your own higher self, literally. However, yes, yes, if Jacob has any further inquiry, he can perhaps grasp for you as verbalizing doesn't seem to be very appropriate.
Jacob says, "What can I expect to see and experience on Kang's planet and collective?" In parentheses, he says the same planet with Myra.
Well, in terms of the atmosphere, it would likely be breathable physically, just for example. It's not necessarily when you're astral traveling, it would make much of a difference, but for example. And of course, the environment would likely be interesting as a mountainous region. It's high mountains. They are of a nature or coloration that would be unusual, perhaps magenta colored on your planet, not very typical. There's something like forests. There aren't these trees, not exactly like those that you're used to on your planet, but there are some form of trees. They're very large, though, very tall compared to what you're used to. Perhaps like your mammoth trees. I think they're called, or even taller. There are some lake areas, but there's not as nearly as much water as what you're used to on your Earth. There's water as regions, but it's more a stony planet. But there's a lot of beautiful landscape, but not again not as watery. There's some form of civilization architecture that their race has established. It's just not necessarily as what you might perhaps expect from high-tech civilization, since they're at a state where they also transitioned some of those things out. So it looks perhaps in some degree peculiar in terms of it being more quite literally down to earth or down to the planet rather. And in some cases, you will find high-tech architecture that seems perhaps out of place from your own planetary evolution of what you would think you would be used to. So some things you might locate in a medieval time, and some things that might seem science fiction to you next to each other. But a lot of very low tech. Perhaps like your Amish living among you. I don't really find a better example right now. It's not literally, but I'm just looking for metaphors or examples. Of course, you can expect meeting them when you're going down astral. It's likely Myra's an easier companion for the beginning. Show you around, so to speak. Find some rivers that are connecting the land or dividing the land, connecting the watery bodies. But again, it's mostly more stony than a watery planet. There are some beautiful landscapes. Some might be comparable to your Rocky Mountains on Earth, for example. Others are more like the Sahara Desert. But overall, it's a peculiar landscape of very high mountains that are standing over otherwise very flat surface. Not necessarily for climbing or living upon very sharp. There are flowers, not necessarily a breed that you would recognize from us with flowery regions or something like grass, not a greenish coloration, purplish, bluish, but nonetheless some form of grass. And those, well, I assume those are the things that he is asking what to expect. There are other ways to answer questions, of course, but I guess that's the most easiest way to really recognize the planet.
Okay, Metax. He says also, he says, I see the world as being something of a foothold for me. How will the people on the planet respond to me being involved there?
Very positively, likely if you just go there and an astral projection, that's not that unusual. So again, since you have made some connection already, being aware of it or not, that would likely be a positive and inquisitive reaction. There would be no hostilities from what I am aware of.
Okay. All right, Metax, we're right exactly at 2 hours. So, yeah, on behalf of all of us, thanks a lot for joining us today. Much love, Metax, and personally, I'll talk to you next week. Thanks.
Until next week, you're counting right, and yeah, thanks for the Christy person for facilitating. Thanks to everybody for bringing in peculiar questions and listening to my elaborations on them, and I hope it was very helpful and interesting to other members of our direction as it was for me. Goodbye for now, and much love to all of you.
Yeah, it was definitely helpful to me, Metax. Thanks. Bye.